Here is my review of the Retrofit Sources Retro-Quik ZKW retrofit product. Backstory is I purchased this E46 ZHP for my wife with badly burnt ZKW bowls, utterly ruined. I replaced them with some used AL units, and then I took the badly burnt ZKW units and I'm refurbishing them for my E46 ZHP, which has halogens from the factory. I am making this video because the Retrofit Source product is not anywhere near as advertised. So let's take a look. Okay, so here is the projector that they sell. It's made by Morimoto. Honestly, it is a beautiful, well-manufactured unit. It's a metal housing. The glass looks amazing. This unit itself looks beautiful. However, the problem is that they advertise it as a plug-and-play unit, and they provide the product with almost zero instruction, when in fact it requires severe modification of the headlight housing. Here's a quick look at pages 1 and 2 of their entire 3-page instruction manual. The third page is referenced later in the video, but this is it. This is all of the instructions that it comes with. This product ships with the full projector unit, the hardware needed to mount the projector to the mounting bracket, which you use the original screws from your ZKW lights to mount to the housing. And yes, there are only 3, because there are only 3 on the original mounting bracket. This one down here doesn't come with the screw, and it doesn't even seem to look like it's set up for a screw. So here is the headlight housing. This is the high beam here, the halogen high beam, and this is where the original ZKW projector is mounted. I've had to severely modify this projector with a Dremel. The bracket that the Retrofit Source provides requires zero modification. It can mount to the housing both ways, so make sure you get it the correct way, and the correct way is to look at this little cut down here, which is a cutout for the plug-in for the high beam. So I have installed 2 of these units so far, and the first step on both of them for me has been to install this bracket using the 3 screws onto the housing. Once these have been mounted down, the next step is to take the mounting hardware that is provided in the kit and kind of loosely set up the screws so that you can start to install the unit, the projector unit, to the mounting. Okay, let's try and look at all of the modifications that have been made to the original housing unit. And these were all made with either a Dremel or just a standard power tool and drill bits. The very first 2 that need to be made are on each side of the unit here. These are simply for the mounting screws to go through each side. These guys right here. Once those are made, then you can kind of start doing the long, tedious work of Mustang guys. Once you can do that, you can start making all the tedious cuts with the Dremel. The first one I made on both units was to the top side of this mounting point. I just shaved off some of the top here so that the metal bracket of the projector can fit. Additionally, cutting out some holes here and here on the top of the projector is again for the mounting screws on the top on each side. Then the next 6 cuts, which were very much trial and error, were here, here, and here, and here, and here, and here. And these are for the tiny little screws that actually mount the glass to the projector. So let's look at those real quick. So that is these 6 screws here. So this guy here, 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 and the matching 3 on the other side. So they actually come through on the back of the projector. And as best as I can tell from the instructions and my experience, this flat surface here needs to be mounted flush against, more Mustang guys. This flat surface here needs to be mounted flush against the whole housing unit, and that's the best way that I have found to mount this unit and keep it flat on all 2 planes against the front of the car. One thing I forgot to mention earlier, which was one of many things I had to learn on my own, was that the mounting bracket that they provide that mounts to the housing seems to not mesh well with these little rubber things that screws that are mounted from on the original unit. They seem to be different heights, and so if you keep these on, the bracket is going to be crooked to a level that wasn't acceptable to me. So I took these out. I don't really know if they're needed, but again, this product comes with almost 0 instructions, so you're on your own. Okay, so I have the mounting bracket that they provide fully screwed in to the housing, the full housing. This is how I'm going to install it on the car. And I have the projector unit, and the screws roughly aligned. They're not, let's see, there's a little play in them. They're not fully lined up and tightened down. I'm just kind of doing this for the video. This is where I have it ready to go for mounting on the vehicle. I have dremeled out places for these 6 screws to seat down into this plastic housing. I have cut the actual projector itself up here and here and here, 3 out of the 4 corners. And the only reason I haven't cut this corner is because this corner was completely useless, even though there's a plastic mounting nub there that just got dremeled completely off. As you can see demonstrated in this corner, the little spacers that they provide, these guys, which at first glance I would assume when you mount it between the housing of the projector, should fully seat against the mounting bracket, but in all 4 cases on this one and the previous unit I made, they do not. This one, as you can see here, there's a lot of play here. I would have to completely cut away so much of this plastic housing unit to get that to beat the situation. But to do that, there's all these kind of structural ridges in the plastic I would have to cut away, and it just doesn't make sense to me. Again, there's no instructions, there's no videos. I'm kind of making my best guess here of how to mount all this together. Okay, so the final mounting step is to attach the 4 nuts to the bolts. I have a 7mm deep socket, and this would be tedious without the deep socket because you would need a 7mm wrench to just sit here and hold this. But fortunately, you can just put a screwdriver on one side and just use a deep socket to attach it. Okay, so I have what I believe is a completed unit here. Unfortunately, this one, as well as the first one I did, I feel that the projector is angled upward a little bit and not seated fully level. I'm not too worried about that because you can adjust the headlights up and down and left to right. I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue. However, I do have the projector unit seated perfectly flush against the plastic mounting bracket. So there's really not much more I can do unless I really want to grind out the rest of this projector. But I don't think that's a good idea because most of the structural points on this plastic are back here, and you'd have to remove a lot of them. And so I'd rather deal with a slight alignment issue at this point than cut away plastic that I can't ever return. And of course, the very last step will be, once you have this all mounted back into your entire housing, is to put the light bulb back into the projector. You can reuse your old light bulbs. I purchased new Morimoto XB D series bulbs. They had a pretty good price, especially compared to Amazon, so I figured I would order new bulbs and keep my original ones as backup, especially since I have two E46s. Additionally, get all this crap to play with. So I paid the extra $10 or $15 for the optional holder. They said that, in their own marketing material, they said that the holder that comes with this projector isn't very good, and so that should have been a warning sign that the whole product is kind of half-baked. But I purchased this. It works pretty well. If you don't purchase this, I'm going to show you what I think is how this works. Okay, so this is my guess how it works. It's not how I'm actually going to be using it. But again, this product comes with 0 instructions other than how to mount this bracket to the plastic frame. So you take your xenon bulb. There's only one way it can mount in because there are little tabs. So you just kind of put it in, twist around until it seats. Then you take the little coil spring, drop it over, take the big bulky screw bottle cap looking thing, and press down and compress the spring. And yeah, I don't know, it's not really working. I don't really care to go any further in this because that's not how I'm going to do it. But additionally, it comes with these 2 springs and this little rubber gasket thing. I have no idea what this is supposed to do. I sent a picture of all these units to the Retrofit source support, and well, to be honest, I sent them with my own adapter installed, and they said that's the correct way, and I had all these other parts and I can't figure out what they're for. These 2 guys are if you want to adapt the high beams to the bi-Xenon. But yeah, this is such an easy thing. I feel that they could make some instructions for it that there are literally no instructions for. This is just a huge mistake on their part. Okay, so here's installation of the bulb with their overpriced plastic adapter that honestly, this is what they should be selling you instead of this big bag of crap. I can't imagine that this is any more expensive for them to make than all of this stuff when apparently none of this stuff works properly. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But so you just slip it on, screw it over, make sure the bulb is seated, kind of wiggle it around, twist it left to right, and then tighten it down. So we are at nearly the end of this project, is to mount the shroud. So I have the original shrouds. One of mine actually turns out to have a lot of the paint faded around here. I didn't know that when I made my order. So I would probably, if I was making this order again, I would probably replace these, but one of them is faded quite a bit. This one looks brand new. Anyway, instead of just clipping on here like the original product, you have to Dremel away, shocker, the two mounting tabs here. They're really easy to cut away. It's not too big of an issue. But the only way to mount this is our good old pal JB Weld, and no joke, this is what they recommend. It doesn't even come in the kit. It's optional. It's $5, whatever. But still, I don't really like working with JB Weld because you got to get a stick out of your backyard and you mix up the goop, and then you hope you don't get the goop on the lens, and then it's a 4 to 6 hour wait, and hopefully you don't misalign it. Okay, so I stole a stick out of the backyard, or maybe your neighbor's yard, or wherever. Mixed up equal parts of the white and black JB Weld over here. They say use an appropriate tool to apply it. I don't know what that really is, but maybe a popsicle stick would be better than a tree stick. Anyway, so here we go. So I'm going to put the largest blob up here on top, just because I feel that's the strongest contact point for the shroud. I'm going to kind of let it get large and goopy and hope there's multiple contact points. So now I just kind of drape it around here. I really don't know if these points will contact with the shroud, but I'm just really nervous about getting any of this JB Weld onto the glass lens. And again, their instructions are terrible. They actually do have a single page PDF instruction for this, and it just says apply JB Weld to contact point. It's like, okay, great. Thanks, guys. I'm honestly wondering if putty would have been better for this. So I have some extra JB Weld left over, so I'm just going to try and coat some of the inside contact points here. Again, it's really hard to tell if any of these points actually contact the projector, but I don't know. Probably could use a little more JB Weld. Okay, so now the scary fun part. Okay, so it doesn't fit perfectly, so you kind of have to push it around. And because the JB Weld isn't super strong, you kind of have to hold it here, I think, until it sets, which might be 6 minutes. I don't know. Again, I'm trying to just kind of look to see how well it lines up here, top to bottom, side to side, front to back. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the part of the project that has nothing to do with the product from the retrofit source. It will be all about challenges related to bad ZKW wiring and fitting a xenon headlight to a car that came from the factory with halogen lights. Once I put everything back together and mounted both headlights to the car, I noticed that the driver's side would turn off after about 10 to 20 minutes of driving. I would pull over, turn off the car. Sometimes it would come right back, sometimes it wouldn't. Everything I researched pointed back to bad wiring. This is a bit surprising to me because the ZKW lights worked without problems prior to the start of my project. As I started to look closer at the wiring, after I took everything apart again, it became apparent that in the process of this project, the brittle wires were falling apart as I moved things around within the unit. In these photos, you can see where the insulation on the wiring is starting to crack and fall off in some places. This is simply just from moving the wires around. It is not from me trying to peel off the insulation. At this point, I decided to order new wires from Wire Barn. I will put links to what I ordered in the video description. After being unsuccessful in disconnecting the wires from the connectors, I followed the advice of a forum member on zhpmafia.com who had done this exact project before and cut the wires within 1 to 1.5 inches from the connector and soldered on new wires. This was pretty tedious and difficult working in such a small and confined environment, as you can see in this photo, but ultimately this is what fixed my problem. Here is a photo of the final result. It's pretty ugly because I forgot to account for the additional length needed on some of the wires for the EMI noise filters. It got pretty tight in there, but it did work. Additionally, I did not rewire the following wires. In blue, the wiring for the vertical alignment motor; in white and black, the halogen flash to pass light; and the igniter itself. Okay, so here is my custom solution to having a bi-Xenon light unit on a car that came with halogens from the factory. So here's the splitter I got from the Retrofit source. It splits the high beam input into two. It used to be $2, now they're $5, still a pretty good deal. This is the wiring that came with the projector unit. It actually comes with the wire and the connector separate, and you just push them through. It's pretty easy. So I completed this wire and got some high temp automotive tape and wrapped the wire, as you can see here on my completed unit. And I cut a little hole into this access hatch to feed the completed wiring through to the solenoid to activate the high beam shutter on the projector. And I chose to do it on this because I figured if I screw it up, I can replace it. If for some reason I ever sell the car and the owner wants to change something, they can easily replace it with a junkyard part or a new part. So on the inside, the cable is connected to the input for the solenoid, and I took some high temp putty and closed up the hole. It's because it's a rubber surface, it's pretty tight already, but I just wanted to be double careful that no water could get in there. And that's about it. So this was mostly plug and play for me. The only thing I did was change the coding for the light control module, the LCM, to be for xenons. I did this using PASoft, but I didn't need to do that because the lights were working fine before I did this. I just did it as an extra level of security. Factory cars with xenon have 4 plugs in their harness. Halogen cars only have 2. The 4 plugs are the low beam, the high beam flash to pass halogen light, the bi-Xenon actuator, and the auto level sensor. I installed the xenon kit on my car without doing all the auto level stuff. I don't know if it's, I don't know what all would be needed to complete this, but there would need to be the front and rear level sensors as well as 1 or 2 control modules. Additionally, I don't know if it's possible to add the additional plugs within the wiring harness in the engine bay to make it 100% factory. After getting everything mounted back on the car, my lights were not properly aligning vertically using the built-in manual adjusters. Here's how I fixed that. So the little adjuster wheel that you turn drives a screw in here, and I think it might be so worn out that it's jumping the track. So I've left the lens off, and I turn this screw with a screwdriver while applying force against the bowl, and it seems to push it all the way back like it should. Here's a quick do-it-yourself for aligning your headlights. Basically just find a flat wall on a flat surface that you can get the car about 30 feet away from the wall and align your headlights. It's pretty easy. Here's the final results. You can see the flash to pass high beam activating at the same time as the bi-Xenon actuator. In conclusion, I am fairly happy with the results. However, I'm still keeping my halogen units as backup. Any failures I would expect would come from the original ZKW wiring, ballasts, or igniters, and not from any of the retrofit source parts. It was extremely easy mounting xenons on a halogen car. With respect to the retrofit source, I believe they unfairly marketed this product. While they do not specifically say plug and play, a lot of their pictures and text allude to being a plug and play product. This product is 100% not plug and play. The only thing they really say is that some trim is required. Overall, this project took me somewhere between 40 to 60 hours to complete. Again, they provide almost no instructions for any of this. If I was completing this project on a car that already had xenons, it would probably take me somewhere between 30 to 50 hours. I contacted the retrofit source several times throughout this process. While they were very willing to help, their email and chat support was extremely slow, up to several days to respond. The one issue I called them on the phone for was solved almost instantly. Their products, the projector, glass, lens, bulbs, and wiring, are all of high quality. However, I think that their overall product is not as advertised. If I were to buy another E46 that had ZKW lights, I unfortunately would probably do this all again, but buyer beware.